Welcome to the VMJ Pod, where we feature industry experts, on the tools practitioners, and Video My Job customers to help you activate your employer brand strategy and EVP.
In this episode, I chat with Alexia Ellmers, the Talent and Employer Brand Manager at GoOne. With a background in tech recruitment for startups and scaling companies, Alexia brings a really fresh perspective on what it takes to build a global, people-first employer brand. Now we dive into how she led the refresh of GoOne's EVP, tailored talent stories for different markets, and how she used employee video to communicate company culture in a real, relatable way. I'm dropping us in as Alexia reflects on her career journey so far and the unique blend of talent acquisition and employer branding that really shapes her approach. Enjoy.
So I've been in talent acquisition now for over a decade, which sounds like a really long time. But I've always been an internal. I really started my career in like high volume, moved into tech startups and scale ups, and that's really my sweet spot. I love kind of building organizations. And my role in employer branding kind of came around organically. So I was really into like recruitment, marketing and social recruitment. And my manager kind of just learned into my strengths and said, like, do you want to make this more official? And so my role now at GoOne is I lead a talent team, but I also look after our global employer branding. So for those who don't know, GoOne is a education technology company. So we're an Australian founded company. Really, our product enables organizations to achieve their L&D goals via a platform. So that's what I do now. So I spend my days pretty much between recruitment, which I love. I absolutely still enjoy recruitment as much as I did like 10 years ago. And then I also spend half of my time employer branding. So that's kind of my little career trajectory.
I feel like a lot of people, I do hear this quite a bit, kind of fall into employer branding as well. It's either you come from TA background and you find your place, I guess, in employer branding, or you come from a marketing background like myself and you find yourself in the EB land. So I love that you had a manager that recognized your strengths and you've lent into that because you're doing an incredible job over at GoOne. So I'm interested to hear what makes your GoOne employer brand unique.
Well, I'm obviously biased because I genuinely think it's an amazing place to work, and I couldn't do what I do unless I believed in that. But I think what makes us unique is we are an Australian-founded SaaS company. So very few Aussie scale-ups make it to the stage that we're at. We're a truly global organization. So we have people across Australia, Asia, Europe, the US. So naturally, that makes for like a really diverse culture, which is awesome. And then because we're in ed tech, we're very much like a purpose-led company. So our product improves people's lives, and then people get excited about that.
You articulate the uniqueness so well, and I'm sure we're going to get into the EVP journey you've been on, because I think probably a lot of what you said just then funnels through to that project itself. But before we jump into that, currently at GoOne, what would you say is your biggest talent challenge?
Yeah, well, being such a global organization, like our challenges are very nuanced to the geographical location. So, for example, in the US and Europe, where GoOne is not as well known, it is really brand advocacy. Whereas in Australia, we are kind of well known because we've grown up in this landscape. So it's really like talent density or quality of hire. So yeah, each geographical location is a little bit different, but those would be probably the main two that we're working on at the moment.
Yeah. And now I know that this year, I'm pretty sure you have been on a journey to refresh the EVP at GoOne. So I've got a few questions I want to ask you about that, but maybe we can just start with, what were some of the main steps that you took in the EVP process?
Yeah. Well, I'll start at the beginning because the challenge and the problem was that, like many scale ups, GoOne has experienced like a crazy level of change over the last 2 years. We acquired 3 separate companies, all bringing with them kind of their own unique culture and EVP. And we kind of found the voice of Go One was a little bit diluted at an organizational level as well. We were evolving from like a startup to a scale up, and all of the growing pains that come along with that. So the TA specific challenges were like, one, our EVP was no longer really reflective of who we are today with all of these other people that have joined our business. And then two, in the kind of challenge to increase talent density, we wanted to find that kind of top 10% of talent. So funnily enough, like attracting more people to Go One was never the goal. And we felt the best way to attract the right people for us was to be radically honest about what it means to work at Go One. So the kind of stages that we set out as part of the project were firstly like research and analysis. Secondly, it was the actual creation of the EVP. And then the third part would be enablement and activation.
And are you at a point now in the journey where you, I guess, are starting to really think about how you're activating what you created and developed through that process, like formats and channels and that kind of thing?
Yeah, 100%. So well, it's still kind of a work in progress, but our main form of activation would be on LinkedIn, because we get probably 90+% of our hires via LinkedIn. Video is definitely our preferred kind of format of activation, but we also dabble in like static people posts and people blogs. We've obviously like updated our careers page, but our biggest win and our most impactful asset, which is what people have said to us, is actually our culture book. So we send like a little culture book out to everyone that interviews at Go One. And it really just encapsulates everything someone would want to know about joining a company. So like going right down to the micro details of like our vision, mission, how we communicate on a day-to-day basis, internal mobility and progression, how we come together as a team. It has like a little personalized video of our CEO. And yeah, how the candidate can really make an impact here. So it's not just like, look at us. It's like, could you see yourself working as part of our business?
And is this culture book that goes out digitally, or you send it to them as like a physical mail out?
Yeah, it's a digital book. So we just embed it in like our like calendar invites for interviews, and then they can do a bit of research, have a look at that. And then we always say like, come with questions once you read the culture book.
I love that. I haven't heard about that before. Did you make that like yourself before you, like, as you took on this EB responsibility? Did you head that up?
Yes, we made it ourselves. We had a little bit of help from marketing, but it was before the EVP rollout, though. We did have it, but it was a very kind of simplified version. After the EVP rollout, it was like all of the pillars, because as well, like through that project, we found out a lot about Go One that we didn't actually know. And then we also, I guess it solidified what is important to people. So we obviously doubled down on those points to make it like an exciting journey for them as well.
And I have seen before when you said that you dabble in kind of static posts for LinkedIn as well to bring this EVP to life. Is that something that you're doing through Canva? And do you have a bit of I guess like a schedule in place where you're mapping out content for the month, or do you just do it on like an ad hoc basis?
Yeah, so we really try to leverage like what we call moments of magic. So it will generally be when someone has reached like an employee milestone. So whether that be like a promotion, a role change, maybe they've hit their 3, 4, 5 years at Go One. So that is all a bit of a manual process. So if anyone has any ideas on how to make this more automated, please hit me up. But essentially, I have access to that through our HRIS system. So I'll get a notification. I'll just Slack them and say, hey, just realize you're coming up to 3 years with Go One. Do you want to do a bit of a Q&A? And we just send them out the questions, they answer, and then I create that on Canva and then schedule a bit of a post about it. So it is pretty manual, but we get really great engagement from them. And also it also celebrates the employee themselves, because we want to make them feel special when they've reached that particular milestone.
Definitely. And it's an asset that they, I'm sure, would reshare themselves on LinkedIn. So you're also tapping into their talent pool. That's really clever. Are you, when you say you're sending the questions, are the questions standardized for everyone so that you don't have to rethink it each time you go out to them, or do you customize it per employee?
We send standardized questions, but we send probably about 15 and then they can choose their favorite 6. And then we just ask them to send through 2 fun photos that brings them joy. So a lot of people will send through like pets or kids or family, because then it gives like a little insight into them as a person rather than just like an employee that works at Go One.
Yeah, that's cool. Are you also sending, sorry, so many questions on this little initiative. I love it. Are you sending them the questions through Typeform or a similar solution? Or do you
We
just
just do
email
it
it to
all
them? Or by
yeah,
Slack?
just
Oh, nice. Yeah.
yeah, so Slack is our main
Mhm.
form of comms. So
Mhm.
yeah, I find it's quicker just to do it over Slack rather than it be like another email sitting in their inbox. And then
Yeah.
often like they'll say, yes, I'll do it. And then they'll forget. And then I'll give them like 1 or 2 little nudges and then they're reminded of it. So yeah, we have a pretty
Mm,
good success rate with people wanting to actually participate.
mm.
Luckily, we've not had to like incentivize it. It's been like its own kind of organic thing, which has been great.
Yeah, and Slack would feel a lot more personal, Slack or Teams or any of that
Mm.
kind of one-to-one outreach, a lot more personal sometimes than even, email can feel a bit cold sometimes too.
Yeah.
Are you I'm just everything you're talking through, I'm like, this is exactly what we do at Video My Job, but in terms of like video questions and video responses. Have you had anyone respond via video or want to respond via video, or they're very happy just sending their written responses back?
Well, to be honest, we haven't really had a platform that would enable us to do that. I would say our acceptance rate would probably drop slightly just because I think naturally people feel a little bit more comfortable to do copy over like a video.
Mhm.
And it would probably take more convincing on my end to like get them to jump in front of a camera to do it. Um, Video would be my preferred because I just think it's a lot more personal rather than like a static post. But yeah,
Mm.
I'd be interested to see if it would affect people wanting to participate.
Yeah, totally. And look, if you got to that point where you did have a platform to do that, I'm sure you could give them the option as well. Are you more comfortable to respond via copy, or would you like to shoot the video? And then from your video assets, you can then create the static posts from that too. So at least you've got multi formats, which is always really
Mm.
handy on a platform like LinkedIn. Um, just taking a step back for a second, at the start of the EVP journey, did you really focus in on some metrics that you wanted to move the needle on and that you, I guess, used to get buy-in across the business for this?
Yeah, so we didn't have any, I guess, what you would call conventional metrics that we were looking to move in terms of like speed to hire or application numbers.
Mm.
What we were looking to achieve in terms of talent density, I always say it's about the long game rather than those like metrics that you can easily look at because success that we're looking to achieve is like the full employee life cycle. So yes, it's all well and good to like hire some top talent, but how long do they stay with us? How do they perform within their role? What is their speed to competency like within their first 6 months? So that is more about, I guess, the long game. But we thought, like, as part of our EVP project, the best way to, I guess, really understand what it is to work at Go One is to go out to our top performers. Because I think all hiring managers have those like unicorns in their team they want more of. So it made sense to us that we would go to those very people to get the feedback from them. So we went out to about 70 top performers across the business. We actually hosted 6 sessions globally, 2 in each region across both individual contributor level and leadership level. And we did like a Miro virtual brainstorming session where we asked them a series of simple questions. We collated that feedback. So we had over like 600 points of data from all of those sessions. And then we used that data to then craft our EVP. So yeah, it was a process. It took a lot longer, if I'm being honest, than what we thought it would, but we're really happy with the process that we took to land where we did.
Mm. And how 600 points of data, that's huge. Did
Yeah.
you leverage AI to help you make sense of that data as well and formulate it in the end?
We did. So we essentially collated it, dumped it into ChatGPT, and then asked ChatGPT to analyze the top themes and trends. And then we sense checked it. So we didn't loop in all of the executive team because we wanted it to be authentic to what our people had said, and we didn't want too many feedback loops. So we essentially brainstormed with the TA team. We landed on the top ones that we thought, actually were accurate and authentic to what we've seen, what we've heard, and what we see. Um, and yeah, we were really happy with the outcome. We landed on 6 pillars. And then we also were able to update all of our assets, our job adverts, our careers page, and our talent shop front, so to speak. Um, and yeah, it was a really successful project. It was definitely like a career highlight for sure.
Yeah, it sounds incredible. I love the concept of a talent shop front. I haven't heard that. And so like you said, you've got 6 pillars. How did you launch that officially internally? Like, did you run a bit of
Mm.
a stand up, a webinar? Did you send a PDF document around, videos? What
Yeah.
did you do?
So all of the above, essentially. So we officially rolled it out live at one of our all hands meetings. We created a video form EVP handbook. So we put together the document, right? But then we jumped on video to explain how to communicate the EVP. I guess as an asset for hiring managers to have in their little toolbox to really understand it firstly, but know how to market our EVP, how to communicate it to candidates. And then we also pinned the asset into every form of our internal platforms, so like Slack, SharePoint, etc. So yeah, we tried to roll it out in every which way we could, because it's hard enough to get buy-in at the best of times. So we wanted to make sure everyone had what they need to really effectively communicate it to new hires.
Yeah. And just finally, my last question on this EVP section is, do you have any advice for anyone who is staring down the barrel of doing an EVP refresh themselves as well?
That's a good question. I would say my advice would probably be twofold. It would be, firstly, I believe the creation of an EVP shouldn't be at a leadership offsite. It should involve your people, and it should speak to the people that you're trying to attract rather than your C-suite team. And then the second piece of advice would be, you really need buy-in from the broader business to activate your EVP. So it's all well and good to kind of update your talent shop front, so your careers page, your job advert, socials, but you really need their buy-in to activate it internally. The early days of someone's journey with you are so important. So if you can get that right, the rest will follow. But to do that, you really need the buy-in from the leadership team and the hiring managers. So yeah, those would be, I guess, my two pieces of advice for anyone kind of starting their journey.
Beautiful. And just on that, when you say that you really need their buy-in to help activate that internally, is that just making sure that they are talking about the pillars all the time in conversation, that they are really kind of leading that from the inside out?
Yeah, I think it's talking about the pillars, knowing the EVP when candidates show up to interviews. It's
Yes.
resharing the content on socials. It should even trickle all the way through to their first 6 months in their team, right? So I think there's many different milestones that the EVP should be talked about and demonstrated. So to do that, you really need them to be bought into the EVP.
Yeah. Beautiful. Shifting gears slightly, I'd love to talk about video. Obviously, I work with video in my job, so we're obsessed with employee video. But I noticed recently on LinkedIn put out a little request to get a freelance videographer in. So obviously you were looking at creating some on-site content. I am jumping to the assumption that they are maybe employee stories, maybe some employee video pieces to support various initiatives that you have running at Go One. So what basically were you looking to create with video? And yeah, am I right in assuming that you were looking to interview employees?
Yes, you would be right. So essentially, we had about 60 people coming to Brisbane from all over the world. So we were like, okay, we need to leverage this in-person time. We'd obviously just rolled out our EVP. Our people content was really outdated. So we were like, let's get people in front of the camera while they're here. They were also doing like team events and kind of strategy sessions, which are like high energy and like really exciting. So we wanted to piggyback off their enthusiasm. So yeah, we did people stories. The type of content that we went for in the end was actually like short form content. So 1-minute videos, talking about a range of different topics, but essentially it came down to like our new EVP, our vision, our mission, and their role.
Amazing. So many questions around this. Sorry. Here we go. So you had 60 people who were obviously attending these events at this session. Did you, I know you said you piggybacked off the energy in the room with some of them, but did you have already an idea of who you wanted to get this content from? Or was it just free for all, whoever was there and keen to jump in the camera, they could? And did you have specific questions that you asked them around the pillars, the vision, the mission, or were they more kind of just like general, tell us how you feel about working at Go One?
Yeah, so we essentially just went out wanting the most diverse range of voices that we could find. So, in terms of like role types, seniority, levels, geographical location, we really wanted to like showcase the really diverse culture that we have here. So, that was like one. Two, because I work in recruitment, like I am still pretty close to the ground. So, I kind of know who the Go One advocates are. So strategically went out to them in terms of people that I know would be excited about wanting to be a part of it. So that was two. And then in terms of the questions that we asked, they were different questions to every single person. There was one common thread, which was based around learning, which is obviously what we do. But yeah, they range between exciting project work, like culture. But they were all slightly different just because we wanted each video to be a little bit different.
Yeah. And did you have like a setup on the day? Like they would come to you, were you stationed somewhere with the videographer or did you kind of do it on the fly?
Yeah, good question. So we had a videographer set up in a room, but I had already identified the people that were going to participate. So I sent them out like a flavor of the questions that we would be asking just so they could kind of prepare. But I said to them, the caveat is we want you to speak from experience. We want it to be like really authentic, really organic. So don't overthink this. Like, but some people do like a little bit of preparation. So we just had one room set up. I had created a bit of a run sheet so we could kind of like have one person come in, do their thing, and then the next person would follow. So it ran really smoothly. And also to allow for like a bit of time, I would say, to warm people up, make them feel really comfortable with you. They already know me, but like, you know, it's always nerve-wracking jumping in front of a camera. It doesn't matter who you are, especially when there's like a videographer in the room, like 3 separate cameras on different angles. So yeah, I just wanted to make them feel really comfortable before we got into it. And that definitely helped with those kind of like filming jitters.
For sure. And now that you have that content captured, do you have a clear idea? Like, do you want to repurpose that? Obviously, you'll share it on LinkedIn because that's the main kind of activation channels. But do you have other channels that you want to slice and dice that content in different specs and get that out to your people and potential talent?
Yeah, so definitely LinkedIn, and we'll update our LinkedIn live page and then slow release the content via LinkedIn. Hopefully we can also like embed it into our full talent process, so updating all of our assets. our careers page, obviously, but we also want to try Instagram. So Instagram has not really been like our main form of marketing. But because of the short form format of the content, I think it will land really well there. Like it's only a minute long. It's like a reel type video. So we're going to try that. We probably aren't in the place where we would try TikTok, although like I would be so open to that. We did try a little stint like a couple of years ago, but it takes a lot of effort to build a following on TikTok. So I think you just really need to go all in. And in the remote world that we live in, I just wouldn't be able to get like enough content to be able to sustain that. So for now, it will just be predominantly LinkedIn and Instagram.
Yeah, the content appetite and the requirement for your engine on TikTok is huge to get that off the ground. But that's exciting about trialing Instagram as well as LinkedIn. Now that you have all of that video content and you identified a bunch of Go One advocates from the 60 pool that you had, did you get a real sense of people who loved being in front of the camera too? And do you think if you went out to them with like further video initiatives and questions and things to even like answer remotely, they would be keen because they've kind of ripped the Band-Aid off?
Yeah, 100%. Everyone and the videographer said like, wow, people are like really great in front of the camera here. So I think I would definitely, yeah, circle back to those people. They were amazing. And I think as well, I would probably keep the topics quite broad again, because I really feel they were more comfortable me asking them questions and then they just speaking from experience rather than having a script that they had prepared. So as long as we could, I guess, replicate that in like a video platform, yeah, I'd be all for it. And I think they would too.
Yeah, amazing. Yeah, we have in the Video My Job journey, we have sorry, two journeys. One is, like you say, like a prompt journey. So you can keep it open. They can talk quite naturally to whatever their experience is. Or you have a script journey where you still will find some people will prefer to read from a script, especially if they're doing it themselves
Mm.
virtually or from a remote kind of session. So I definitely agree. And I always err on the side of encouraging people to use prompts because you also just get them talking from the heart. Things naturally come up a lot more nicely, and it doesn't feel as it feels more authentic sometimes than just scripted content. When you are asking these questions, my last kind of bit is on here. So now that you've had this experience of bringing all these people in, asking them lots of different questions based off their role, their experience, etc. Could you give our listeners a little bit of a taste of the types of questions that you would ask them? So if we are talking to, say, like a brand new hire or a long-term employee or a senior leader, I know they're kind of broad categories, but are there a couple of universal questions you could ask each of those personas and that someone listening might replicate themselves in-house?
Of course. Um, for a new joiner, we would ask questions about what inspired them to actually join Go One over other companies, right? So it would be something along the lines of like, what about our mission inspired you to join us? Because generally they'll start talking about Go One's mission, what excites them about it, and that's like really magical content. For a long-term employee, I would want to know like what keeps them here. So I would ask them a question about like what does Go One do better than anywhere else that you've worked. Hopefully you get some like really good nuggets about like what work excites them, and yeah, you could work it around that way. And then for someone that was in a leadership position, like I know at Go One and a lot of companies, people don't generally start as senior leaders. They maybe start as managers and progress into those roles. So I would be wanting to ask about like, tell me your career journey and how you moved into this role. And hopefully you would pick someone that's had like a really great progression story. But I would be looking to double down on like, learning and development, internal mobility, and what the progression and growth looks like within the company. So those would be my top three.
Perfect. And just one final question after I've already asked you a squillion, but there's so much in that when you are asking, say, like these three personas, and if, say, we were doing it on video, from the video, you then would take, say, a static post, you could put it on LinkedIn. Are you also creating things like blogs? Are you getting like audio snippets? Like, are there any other formats that you're thinking about that might be really helpful to someone else listening to?
Oh, that's a good one. Probably the one thing that I am looking at doing right now is, because we do have like a workforce in like Asia and also in Europe, is translating into different languages, which would land with people that are potentially non-English speaking, or they come from different backgrounds. Um, but I really do want to get better at taking one form of content and recreating it in a different format. Um, to be honest, like, I'm not really there yet. I will like create a people blog and then that will be it, or I'll create a video and that will be it. So yeah, I would like to know that too, actually.
Yeah. Yeah, we talk a lot. Well, we are at the moment talking a lot about repurposing video content into multiple different assets. So blogs, audio snippets, static imagery and quote cards like we were talking about before. And we're working on a really exciting solution at Video My Job. So maybe we could have a chat about this offline, because
Ooh,
maybe if you found the right tool, it might help you get a little bit more legs out of your content, which is always a good thing.
I would love that.
Thank you so much, Alexia. I feel like we've touched on everything that I wanted to pick your brain about today. Yeah, I'm really excited to see what happens in the world of employee branding at Go One over the next year, and would love to get you back on and do a retro on 2025.
Sounds amazing. And thank you so much for having me. It's been great chatting to you.
Thanks so much for listening to today's episode. If you want to learn more about activating your employer brand strategy and EVP, then you can check out podcast.videomyjob.com for a library of industry perspectives and how-tos. Lastly, we'd love for you to help us spread the word about the VMJ pod to attract new experts and practitioners to share their activation strategies. So please take a screenshot of wherever you're listening and post it on LinkedIn. Don't forget to tag us at Video My Job. We are so grateful when you do that.